What if you discovered that everything you thought was true about your loved ones was a lie? What if the person closest to you was hiding something that would shake your entire world? Stay with me as I uncover a betrayal that will leave you speechless. It was a quiet afternoon, the kind of day where everything felt normal. The sun was shining through the stained glass windows of St. Francis Church. Guests were milling about, congratulating each other, excited for the big event. The air was filled with the hum of light conversation and the sweet, familiar sounds of organ music filling the church. It was Emily's wedding day, the day she had been dreaming of for years. I had raised Emily with all my love and care. Every sacrifice I made for her, every decision I made, was for her future. I thought I knew everything about her, her hopes, her fears, and most importantly, her heart. She had grown into a beautiful, kind, and smart woman. But little did I know, the man she was about to marry, Ben, was hiding a darkness I never could have imagined. As I stood in the church, exchanging pleasantries with close relatives, I felt a strange unease settle in my chest. I tried to shake it off, but something didn't feel right. I excused myself, stepping into the quiet hallway behind the church, hoping to gather myself before the ceremony began. The hallway was dim, the only sound was my footsteps echoing off the cold stone floor. I took a deep breath, the cool air calming my nerves, but then a voice, loud and unmistakable, stopped me in my tracks. The door to the groom's preparation room was ajar, and I could hear the sound of Ben's voice, low at first, but growing louder. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but I couldn't move. My feet felt like they were stuck to the floor. My heart raced. What I was about to hear would change everything. Ben was talking with his friends, and they were laughing. At first, I didn't understand what he was saying. But then, his words hit me like a slap in the face. "Just thinking about sleeping with that fat pig makes me sick," he said, followed by a cruel burst of laughter from the men in the room. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. Fat pig. My daughter, my beloved Emily, was the fat pig he was talking about. My chest tightened. How could he speak about her that way? I couldn't believe it. I had always thought of Ben as a charming, respectful man. But this was a different side of him. A side that was ugly, cruel, and entirely unworthy of my daughter. But it wasn't just his words that stung. It was what came next. "At least I'll get the mother-in-law's huge fortune," Ben's voice continued. "That's what I'm really after. The Chestnut Grove estate is worth millions." His friends laughed again, their voices full of mockery and greed. I felt the blood drain from my face. The Chestnut Grove estate, our family's legacy, was now a commodity to him. He wasn't marrying Emily out of love. He was marrying her for the wealth, the land, and the power that came with it. My daughter, the woman he was supposed to love, was nothing more than a means to an end. I pressed my back against the wall, clutching my rosary beads in my hands. The smooth, cool wood of the beads did little to calm the growing storm inside me. My heart was racing, my thoughts in turmoil. How could I have been so blind? How could I have trusted him? How could my daughter not see this? I wanted to storm into that room, confront Ben, and tell him that I knew his secret. I wanted to scream at him for every cruel word he had spoken. But I couldn't. I had to stay calm. For Emily's sake. If I blew this now, everything could be ruined. The wedding, her happiness, everything. I forced myself to take a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands. I needed to think clearly. I needed a plan. I turned and walked quickly toward the bride's room, trying to push the thoughts of Ben's cruelty out of my mind. But they lingered, gnawing at me. I could still hear his voice in my head. Fat pig. Huge fortune. The words twisted in my stomach like a knife. When I entered the bride's room, I tried to hide the anger and shock I felt. Emily was sitting in front of the mirror, her wedding dress fitting her perfectly. She looked like an angel, beautiful, radiant, and full of joy. Her best friend, Laura, was beside her, helping her with her veil. Emily's face lit up when she saw me, and I forced a smile, pretending everything was fine. But inside, my world was crumbling. I sat down beside Emily, my hands trembling in my lap. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," I said, my voice tight. But I could hardly look at her. All I could think about was Ben and the horrible things he had said. How could he do this to her? How could he betray her in such a way? Did she even know the truth? How could I tell her on the most important day of her life? Emily smiled at me, but there was a sadness in her eyes that I hadn't noticed before. "Thanks, Mom. I'm so nervous," she admitted, her voice soft. "I just want everything to go perfectly." I wanted to tell her everything, to warn her about Ben, but I couldn't. I knew she wouldn't believe me. She loved him. She was blind to the truth, just as I had been. How could I shatter her dream? How could I destroy the one thing that made her happy? I took her hand in mine, my heart heavy with the weight of what I had overheard. "Honey, everything will be fine. You're going to be so happy," I said, trying to reassure her. But even as I spoke the words, I knew they were lies. The truth was much darker than I was ready to admit. But little did Emily know, the man she was about to marry wasn't the person he had pretended to be. The truth was about to come out, and it would change everything. Stay with me as we uncover what happens next. As I sat there in the bride's room, my mind raced. The sound of the organ music, the soft hum of the guests gathering outside, everything felt so surreal. It was as if I had been transported into a parallel world where nothing made sense anymore. My daughter, radiant and beautiful in her wedding dress, was completely unaware of the darkness surrounding her. I tried to shake off the thoughts of Ben and his cruel words, but they clung to me like a shadow. I wanted to scream, to expose him for the manipulative liar he was, but I knew I couldn't. Not yet. Emily loved him, and if I told her now, I risked losing her forever. The last thing I wanted was to tear apart her happiness on the biggest day of her life. But I also knew I couldn't let him get away with it. I had to protect her, even if it meant risking everything. I forced myself to smile at Emily, but my heart felt heavy. She was so young, so innocent, and I had always prided myself on being there for her, protecting her from the world's ugliness. But now, I was faced with the reality that I couldn't protect her from the one person I had thought would always have her back. The man she was about to marry. "Are you sure you're okay, Mom?" Emily asked, her voice full of concern. "You seem off. You look pale." I took a deep breath, pushing the weight of the situation down. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just a little tired, that's all." I tried to make my voice sound convincing, but I knew she could see right through me. The concern in her eyes made my heart ache even more. "You know, you don't have to go through with this, Mom," Emily said, her voice soft. "I can call off the wedding if you think something's wrong." I shook my head quickly, too quickly. "No, no, sweetheart. Everything is fine. You're about to marry the man you love, and I couldn't be happier for you." But inside, I was crumbling. My heart was torn in two, one part aching for my daughter, the other burning with anger and betrayal. How could I let her marry a man who saw her as nothing more than a pawn in his scheme for money? How could I stand by and watch her life be destroyed? The ceremony was about to begin. I had no more time to think, no more time to plan. I watched as Emily stood up, her white dress flowing behind her like a cloud, the sunlight casting a halo around her. She looked every bit the angel I had always seen her as. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this was the calm before the storm. As the guests took their seats and the wedding party lined up, I excused myself once more. I needed a moment to gather my thoughts, to come up with a plan. I walked to the back of the church, away from the noise and the commotion, trying to calm my racing heart. I couldn't let my emotions take control. Not now. Not when everything depended on me staying calm and focused. As I paced the hallway, my mind began to work. I needed to find a way to expose Ben for who he truly was, but I had to be smart. I couldn't confront him directly, he would just deny everything, spin it into some sort of manipulation to turn Emily against me. No, I needed evidence. I needed something that would make her see the truth for herself, something undeniable. I thought about the conversation I had overheard earlier, the cruel words Ben had spoken. He had called Emily a fat pig and mocked her for her insecurities. But that wasn't enough. I needed more. I needed proof that he wasn't marrying her out of love, but out of greed. I needed something that would make her realize the truth, even if it hurt. Then, it hit me. The Chestnut Grove estate. The one thing Ben was after. The land. The legacy that had been passed down through generations of my family. I had always known that it was valuable, but now I realized just how valuable it was to Ben. That's why he was with Emily, to secure his claim to the land. To secure his future. I turned back toward the bride's room, determination filling my chest. I had to act fast. But what could I do? What could I possibly say to Emily that would make her believe me? I couldn't just tell her the truth, I needed to show her. I took out my phone and sent a quick message to Victor, the family lawyer who had helped me manage the estate for years. Victor, I need your help. I believe Ben is after the Chestnut Grove estate. Can you send me the latest documents? I need them now. I didn't know if he would respond quickly enough, but it was worth a shot. I couldn't just sit around and wait for Emily to figure it out on her own. She needed to know the truth, and she needed to know it now. As I returned to the bride's room, I forced a smile. Emily was standing in front of the mirror, looking at herself in awe. "Mom, do you think Ben will like this dress?" she asked, her voice full of excitement. I nodded, even though the truth was far from my mind. "He's going to love it, sweetheart. You look beautiful." I was about to turn to leave when my phone buzzed. A message from Victor: "I've sent the documents to your email. Take a look at them, but be careful. Ben is not who he seems." I glanced at my phone, my heart pounding. This was it. This was the proof I needed. I quickly opened the email and scanned the documents. There it was, the power of attorney paperwork, the mortgage agreements, the loan guarantees. Ben's name was everywhere. The Chestnut Grove estate was listed as collateral, and I could see that Ben had been working behind the scenes to secure his hold on the property. I felt sick. How could he do this? How could he manipulate my daughter into signing away her inheritance? It was all right there, in black and white. But I wasn't about to let him get away with it. I had the proof. I had the evidence. And now, it was time to put the plan into motion. The question was, what was I willing to risk to protect my daughter? The moment I opened the email from Victor, everything shifted. The documents in front of me told the story I had suspected all along, but seeing it in black and white made it feel all too real. Ben wasn't just after my daughter's heart, he was after everything my family had worked for. The Chestnut Grove estate was the key to his plan, and with Emily's inheritance, he had already secured a foothold. It was as if he was building a fortress around her, around everything I had built, and I was standing on the outside, powerless. But I couldn't stand idly by. Not anymore. I had always prided myself on being a protector, a provider, and now was no different. My daughter was about to marry a man who had no regard for her heart, only for what he could get from her. And I would be damned if I let that happen without a fight. I sat there, the weight of the documents heavy in my hands, staring at the screen as I tried to figure out my next move. I couldn't let Emily marry him. I couldn't let her make the biggest mistake of her life. But how could I possibly make her see the truth when she was so in love with him? I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let Ben or Laura, her best friend who had been by her side for years, manipulate her into thinking everything was fine. I had to find a way to break through her blind trust, to show her the truth without pushing her further away. I stepped out of the bride's room, my heart pounding as I walked down the narrow hallway toward the church's back door. My mind was racing, but I couldn't seem to find a clear path. What would Emily do if she found out the truth? What if she hated me for interfering? What if I lost her forever? The thoughts were overwhelming, but I couldn't let them stop me. She needed to know. She had to know. I sent a quick text to Victor, telling him I would need to speak to him soon. The documents he had sent me were a game changer, but I couldn't confront Ben directly, not yet. I needed more. I needed proof that would not only expose his lies but also destroy his credibility in front of Emily. She couldn't keep ignoring the truth once I had everything lined up. But then, something happened that I wasn't expecting. As I turned back toward the main hall, I ran into Laura. Her eyes locked onto mine, and I felt a cold chill run down my spine. She was standing there, her arms folded across her chest, her expression unreadable. I had always trusted Laura. She had been a part of Emily's life for as long as I could remember. She was like a second daughter to me, someone I had welcomed into my home and treated like family. But now, I wasn't so sure. "Mrs. Audrey, is everything okay?" she asked, her voice too sweet, too careful. There was something in her eyes, something that made me wary. Why was she asking? Why did she seem so concerned all of a sudden? I forced a smile, trying to hide my growing suspicion. "I'm just fine, Laura." "Everything is great," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "How about you? Everything going well with the wedding?" She nodded, but there was a strange glint in her eyes. "Oh, of course. Emily's been so excited. This is the happiest day of her life. She deserves this." I couldn't help but feel uneasy. There was something about Laura's tone, the way she said it, that made me question her motives. Why was she so insistent on pushing this wedding forward? Why was she so eager to pretend everything was perfect when I knew the truth? I looked her in the eye, trying to keep my expression neutral. "Laura, is there something you need to tell me?" I asked softly. "Something that you think I should know?" She blinked, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of something in her eyes, a brief moment of panic. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by the same calm, controlled demeanor she always had. "No, Mrs. Audrey, of course not," Laura said, her smile tight. "Everything is just fine. Just a little pre-wedding jitters, you know. But don't worry. Emily's happy. And that's what matters." I felt my heart race as I studied her. She was hiding something. I knew it. But what? What was she hiding, and why was she so determined to keep me in the dark? I had always trusted her, but now I wasn't sure I could trust anyone. "Okay, Laura," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "I hope you're right. I hope everything is as perfect as it seems." I turned to walk away, my mind swirling with questions, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Laura knew more than she was letting on. It was as if she was hiding something, something she didn't want me to uncover. As I made my way back to the bride's room, I felt a sense of urgency growing inside me. I had to confront Emily. I had to show her the truth. But how? How could I make her see what was right in front of her without tearing her apart in the process? When I returned to the room, Emily was sitting on the edge of the bed, her hands clasped together nervously. "Mom, are you sure everything's okay?" she asked again, her voice filled with concern. "You're acting a little strange." I took a deep breath, trying to push my doubts and fears aside. "I'm fine, sweetheart," I said, my voice softer this time. "I'm just a little overwhelmed, that's all. It's your wedding day, and it's a lot to take in." She nodded, her face lighting up with a smile. "I understand. I'm just so excited. Ben's been everything I've ever wanted. I know this is going to be perfect." I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the truth pressing down on me. How could I tell her that Ben wasn't the man she thought he was? How could I shatter her dreams when she was so close to the happiest moment of her life? I wanted to say something, anything, to make her see the truth. But as I opened my mouth, the door suddenly burst open. It was Laura again, her expression tense. "Emily, they're waiting for you," she said quickly, glancing at me before turning her attention back to Emily. "You need to get ready for the ceremony. It's time." Emily nodded, her smile returning as she stood up. "Thanks, Laura. I'll be right there." She turned to me. "I'll see you out there, Mom. I love you." I watched her leave, my heart heavy with the weight of everything I had just learned. I wanted to stop her. I wanted to tell her everything. But I knew I couldn't. Not yet. But as Emily walked down that aisle, I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. What if I was too late? What if everything I had tried to do to protect her was in vain? I watched as Emily left the room, her white gown flowing behind her, a perfect vision of innocence and joy. She was completely unaware of the betrayal unfolding around her. I could see the excitement in her eyes, the eagerness to marry the man she thought was her dream. But the truth, the ugly, painful truth, was waiting for her at the altar, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I stood there, frozen, in that moment of helplessness. The weight of the situation was too much to bear. I had tried everything I could to protect her from Ben, but now I feared it was too late. As much as I wanted to tell her everything, I knew she had already made up her mind. She trusted him, loved him, and that trust was something I couldn't easily break. But I couldn't let it end like this. I couldn't just stand by and watch her marry a man who didn't deserve her. I had raised her to be strong, to make her own decisions, but this was different. This wasn't just a bad choice, it was a dangerous one, one that could ruin her life forever. I had to do something. I had to stop the wedding, or at least delay it, until I could show her the truth. I took a deep breath, my mind racing. There had to be a way to prove to her that Ben wasn't who he seemed. The documents from Victor were a start, but I needed more. I needed to expose Ben's manipulations, his greed, and his lies in front of everyone, especially Emily. But how could I do that without making her hate me? How could I make her see that I was only trying to protect her? As I walked out of the bride's room, my legs felt weak beneath me. I knew the ceremony was about to begin, and time was running out. I needed to act fast. The guests were already gathering in the main hall, waiting for the bride to make her grand entrance. I couldn't let Ben get away with this. I had to find a way to stop the wedding, to reveal the truth before it was too late. I slipped into the back of the church, staying hidden in the shadows. I could hear the soft murmur of the guests as they whispered excitedly, waiting for Emily to walk down the aisle. I felt a pang of sorrow in my chest. I had dreamed of this day for so long, the day my daughter would get married, the day she would start a new chapter of her life. But now, all I could think about was how Ben's lies were about to ruin everything. I tried to focus, to think clearly, but my mind was a blur. My emotions were running wild: anger, fear, sadness. I couldn't believe that Ben had fooled us all. And then there was Laura. She had been by Emily's side throughout everything. She had been the one to support her, the one who had convinced Emily to go through with the wedding, even when I tried to warn her. What was her role in all of this? Was she really just a friend, or was there more to her involvement than I had realized? I glanced toward the back of the church, where the bridal party was gathering. Laura stood beside Emily, helping her adjust her veil, her face a mask of calm. But I saw the way she glanced over at me, her eyes briefly meeting mine before she quickly looked away. There was something in her expression, something that made me feel uneasy. Was she hiding something? Had she known about Ben's intentions all along? Before I could think more about it, the music began to play, signaling the start of the ceremony. My heart skipped a beat as Emily stepped into the aisle, her face glowing with excitement and anticipation. She looked beautiful, like a dream. But as I watched her walk toward Ben, a cold chill ran down my spine. This wasn't just a wedding, it was the beginning of a nightmare. The guests stood up, their smiles and applause filling the air as Emily moved closer to the altar. Ben stood at the front, his back straight, a smug smile plastered on his face. But I could see it in his eyes. I could see the coldness, the greed that lay hidden beneath the surface. This wasn't love. This wasn't a fairy tale. This was a carefully orchestrated plan to take everything my family had worked for. I took another deep breath and stepped forward, my feet feeling heavy with every step. I couldn't just stand there. I had to stop this. I had to protect my daughter from this man. But how? How could I expose him without destroying her in the process? As I reached the back of the altar, I hesitated for a moment, my heart pounding in my chest. Emily had stopped just a few steps away from Ben, and the priest was about to ask if anyone had any objections. My stomach twisted with fear. This was my chance. I could speak now, tell everyone the truth, and stop the wedding. But I knew the consequences. I knew that if I did this, I could lose my daughter forever. The priest's voice broke through my thoughts. If anyone has any objections to this marriage, speak now or forever hold your peace. What if I spoke now? What if I exposed Ben's lies in front of everyone? The truth could destroy everything, but it could also save my daughter. What was I willing to sacrifice to protect her? I stepped forward, my heart racing as I prepared to speak. I could feel the eyes of everyone in the room on me, the weight of their gazes pressing down on me like a heavy burden. I looked at Emily, standing there, her hands trembling slightly as she reached out to take Ben's. She was so close to making the biggest mistake of her life, and I couldn't let it happen. "Stop the wedding," I said, my voice barely above a whisper but loud enough for everyone to hear. There was a collective gasp in the room. The music stopped. All eyes turned toward me. Emily's face went pale, and she looked at me with confusion, hurt, and disbelief. "Mom, what are you doing?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why are you doing this?" I could feel the anger and frustration building inside me, but I knew I had to stay calm. I had to make her understand. "Emily, I love you," I said, my voice breaking. "But Ben isn't who you think he is. He doesn't love you. He's using you for your inheritance, for the Chestnut Grove estate. He's been lying to you, and I have proof." The room went silent. No one moved. Emily's eyes filled with tears as she turned to Ben, searching his face for an explanation. Ben's smile faltered for just a moment, and I saw the flicker of fear in his eyes. But he quickly masked it, turning toward Emily and placing a hand on her shoulder. "Your mother is just upset, Emily," he said, his voice smooth, his tone trying to reassure her. "She's just trying to cause trouble. I love you. I've always loved you." But Emily wasn't listening. She turned back to me, her face pale, her eyes wide with shock. "How could you say that? How could you accuse him of such a thing?" "Because I've seen the evidence, Emily," I said, my voice shaking with emotion. "I have the documents. Ben has been working behind your back to secure control of the estate. He doesn't love you. He's using you." The tears started to fall from Emily's eyes as she shook her head, not believing what I was saying. "No, Mom. You're wrong. You don't understand. Ben loves me. He would never do that." In that moment, everything felt like it was slipping away. My daughter, the love of my life, was standing there, choosing him over me. Was this the end of everything we had? Was there a way to fix this before it was too late? Emily's tear-filled eyes searched mine, but there was something in them, a hurt, a betrayal, something that I had never seen before. She had always trusted me, always leaned on me for guidance. But now, she was standing there, with her heart tangled up in Ben's lies. She couldn't see it. She didn't understand. I had just shattered her world. I knew it, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't stand by and watch her make the biggest mistake of her life. I looked at Ben, and for the first time, I saw the man he truly was. His fake smile, the way he tried to play the perfect fiancé, the way he held Emily like he was the hero of this story, it was all a lie. Beneath that polished exterior, he was a manipulative, calculating man who had been using my daughter from the start. He was no more than a wolf in sheep's clothing, and I was determined to expose him. I didn't know if Emily would ever forgive me. The way she looked at me now, it seemed like the distance between us was growing, not shrinking. I had done everything I could to protect her, but now, it felt like I was losing her. "Mom, stop!" Emily cried, her voice full of pain. "Why are you doing this? Why are you ruining everything? You don't know him like I do." "I know him better than you think, Emily," I said softly, my voice trembling with emotion. "And I know that he doesn't love you. He never has. He's using you, and he's using this family for everything it's worth. Please, you have to see that." Ben took a step forward, his anger barely contained. "Enough, Audrey. You're making a scene, and you're ruining everything for Emily. You're just jealous of our happiness." The venom in his words stung, but I didn't back down. I couldn't. Emily needed to hear the truth, no matter how hard it was to say. "Ben, you can't keep lying to her," I said, my voice growing stronger. "This isn't about jealousy. It's about protecting my daughter from a man who will destroy everything she has." Ben's expression darkened, his jaw tightening. "You have no idea what you're talking about," he spat. "You'll regret this." I turned back to Emily, my heart breaking. "I don't want to lose you, sweetheart. But I can't let you marry him. Not when I know what he's done. Not when I know what he's planning." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as she looked at me, her hands shaking. "Mom, please, why can't you just accept that I'm happy? Why can't you accept Ben?" I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. This wasn't just about the wedding. This was about everything I had built for her, everything I had worked for, everything I wanted to protect. "Because, Emily," I said softly, "I've spent my life protecting you, and I'll continue to do so, even if it means you hate me for it. The silence in the room was suffocating. The guests were watching, waiting for the next move, and all I could think about was Emily. I was losing her, and it was the hardest thing I had ever faced. I reached into my purse and pulled out the evidence, Victor's documents, the photos, the recordings. "I have proof, Emily," I said, my voice shaking with emotion. "Everything you need to know is right here. Please, look at it. Please, just take a moment to understand what's really happening." Emily shook her head, the tears streaming down her face. "I don't want to see it, Mom. I don't want to believe you." My heart shattered, but I didn't give up. "Please, Emily. Just trust me this one time. Look at the documents. Look at the truth." I handed her the papers, hoping she would understand. I hoped the truth would be enough to open her eyes, but I couldn't be sure. I watched as she looked down at the papers, her hands trembling as she read through them. I could see the change in her confusion, her shock, the disbelief. The truth was sinking in, and I knew this was the moment that would change everything. The silence was deafening as Emily processed the truth. But the hardest part was yet to come. Would she accept the truth, or would she turn away from me forever? I stood there, waiting, as Emily read the papers. The world around me seemed to freeze. My breath caught in my throat, and I watched her closely, waiting for some kind of reaction. I knew it was too much to ask, but I couldn't help but hope. Emily's face twisted with confusion as she looked at me, then back at the papers. This can't be real," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Ben would never do this." I stepped closer to her, my heart aching. "Emily, I love you, and I would never lie to you. What's in those papers is the truth. Ben has been lying to you. He's been using you from the beginning. He's only after the Chestnut Grove estate. That's why he's marrying you." The words hung in the air like a heavy fog. Emily looked at Ben, and for the first time, I saw doubt flicker in her eyes. He had always been her protector, the man she thought loved her. But now, she was faced with the crushing reality that everything she believed in was a lie. Ben stepped forward, his voice venomous. "This is ridiculous. You're just trying to tear us apart, Audrey. You're jealous because Emily's found someone who makes her happy." But Emily wasn't listening anymore. She slowly turned to Ben, her hands trembling as she took a step back. I don't know what to believe anymore," she whispered. "How could you do this? How could you lie to me?" Ben's expression faltered, his composure slipping. For a moment, I saw the true Ben, the man he really was, without his mask of charm and charisma. He was no longer the suave businessman trying to charm his way into a fortune. He was just a man who had been caught in a lie, and the reality of that was crashing down on him. "I don't love you, Emily," Ben spat, his anger boiling over. "I never did. I only wanted the money, the power. You were nothing more than a means to an end." Emily's face went pale as she took another step back, her hand clutching the papers in her hand. "I can't believe this. I don't know you anymore." And just like that, the dream she had held onto so tightly, the dream of marrying the man she thought loved her, began to shatter. The truth was out, and there was no turning back. I reached out to her, my arms wide, hoping she would come to me, hoping she would let me hold her, let me fix the broken pieces of her heart. But instead, Emily turned away from me. She looked at Ben one last time, her eyes full of pain, before walking away. The weight of her decision crushed me. I wanted to run after her, to hold her, to make her understand that this was for her own good. But I knew it was too late. The damage had been done. I had fought for her, sacrificed everything for her, but now, I had to let her go. She needed to find her own way, her own truth. And I had to believe that, in the end, she would come to understand why I did what I did. But this wasn't the end of the story. There were still battles to fight, truths to uncover, and a future to rebuild. What would Emily do next? What would Ben's next move be? Stay with me as we face the aftermath of the truth. The truth had come to light, but the consequences were just beginning. As Emily walked away, I realized that the fight wasn't over. Ben may have been exposed, but the fallout from his betrayal would affect us all. Would my daughter find her way back to me? Could we ever rebuild what Ben had destroyed? The day of the wedding had turned into the most painful of my life. The love and joy that had been meant for Emily had been crushed under the weight of Ben's deceit. But even in that moment, with everything unraveling, I knew the hardest part wasn't yet behind us. Emily was lost, confused, and angry at me for interfering. She hadn't yet fully realized the depth of Ben's betrayal, but I knew time would reveal the truth. I spent the following days wrestling with my emotions. I had always protected Emily, guided her, made every decision with her best interests in mind. But now, for the first time in her life, she was seeing me as the enemy. And I didn't know how to fix it. Days turned into weeks, and I gave her space. I let her figure things out on her own, hoping the truth would finally sink in. But every time I saw her, she seemed further away, her eyes clouded with hurt, distrust, and confusion. I tried to keep things normal. I focused on the family business, the farm, keeping the legacy alive. But every corner I turned, there she was, her absence in the house, her cold silence during family meals, her questions lingering in the air. The tension between us was unbearable. I knew Emily was angry with me, but I also knew that deep down, she wanted to understand. She just needed time. One afternoon, as the sun was beginning to set over the fields, Emily came to find me. I had been out in the orchard, checking on the crops, when I saw her walking toward me. My heart skipped a beat. I didn't know what to expect. Was she ready to talk? Or was she still holding on to her anger? She stopped a few feet away from me, her arms crossed tightly in front of her chest. Her face was unreadable, but I could see the sadness in her eyes. The pain she had been carrying for so long was finally showing through. It was the first time she had come to me without the walls she had built between us. "I've been thinking," Emily said, her voice quiet but steady. "A lot. About everything. About you. About Ben. And about the farm." I waited for her to continue, my heart in my throat. The silence between us felt like a lifetime. I wanted to reach out to her, to tell her how much I had missed her, how much I wanted things to go back to the way they were. But I knew I had to wait. I had to let her speak, let her process everything in her own time. "I was so blind, Mom," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "I thought I was making the right choice. I thought I was doing what was best for me. But I see now, you were right. About Ben. About everything. I don't know how I didn't see it sooner. But you were right all along." My heart ached as I looked at her. The relief I felt was overwhelming, but so was the sadness. She had been so hurt, so lost in the lie that Ben had woven around her. I wanted to pull her into my arms, to hold her like I used to when she was little, but I stayed still. She needed space. She needed time to heal, to understand that everything I had done was because I loved her. "I'm so sorry, Mom," Emily whispered, her voice full of regret. "I didn't trust you. I didn't believe you. I should have. I should have listened." "You don't have to apologize, sweetheart," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I just want you to know that I did what I did because I love you." I always have, and I always will. But you had to see the truth for yourself. I couldn't protect you from everything, and I couldn't make that decision for you. She stepped closer to me, her eyes still filled with tears. I know now, Mom. I know how much you've sacrificed for me. And I know I hurt you. But I'm ready to fix things. I want to rebuild what we've lost. And I want to help you with the farm. With everything. I don't want to lose you, too. I reached out, pulling her into a tight embrace. You haven't lost me, Emily. You never will. We're in this together. Always. For the first time in weeks, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The distance between us had begun to close, and the bond we shared, though scarred, was starting to heal. But even though Emily had come back to me, the story wasn't over. Ben was still out there, and he wasn't going to let go of what he wanted so easily. What would he do next? How far was he willing to go to destroy everything we had? Days passed, and things slowly returned to normal. Emily began to help around the farm, taking on more responsibility and showing a new sense of purpose. She was no longer the naive girl who had trusted Ben with everything. She was strong, resilient, and ready to take on the world. I couldn't have been prouder of her. But Ben's shadow still loomed over us. I knew that he wouldn't let this go. He had spent too much time scheming and manipulating to just walk away. And with the Chestnut Grove estate in his sights, I knew it wouldn't be long before he made his move. I was right. One afternoon, as Emily and I were sitting on the porch, the sound of tires crunching on the gravel driveway pulled our attention. We looked up, and there, standing at the gate, was Ben. His face was a mask of anger and frustration, and I could see that he was ready to fight. "Mom, stay here," Emily said, her voice firm. "I'll handle this." I wanted to stop her, to protect her from what was coming, but I knew she needed to face this. She needed to stand up for herself, for us. This was her battle, too. Emily stood up, walking toward the gate with her head held high. I stayed behind, my heart in my throat as I watched them meet in the middle of the driveway. Ben opened his mouth to speak, but Emily didn't give him a chance. "I know what you're doing, Ben," Emily said, her voice clear and strong. "And I'm not going to let you take everything from us. I've seen the truth. I've seen the lies. And I'm done with you." Ben's face twisted with rage, but he didn't speak. He just stood there, glaring at her, knowing that he had lost. It was over. And just like that, the final piece of the puzzle fell into place. But what would happen to Ben? What would be the final consequence of his betrayal? Stay with me as we uncover the last chapter of this story. The story of Ben, of betrayal and deception, was finally over. Emily had made the right choice. We had rebuilt the foundation of trust, and though the road ahead would still be filled with challenges, we were stronger for having gone through it together. But Ben's consequences were far from over. The truth had caught up with him, and the legal battle would continue. The Chestnut Grove estate would remain in our hands, and the legacy of my family would live on. But more than that, Emily had learned the most important lesson of all: the truth always prevails, and family is everything. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this story as powerful as I did. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. And let me know in the comments, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have exposed the truth, or would you have stayed silent? I want to hear from you. Remember, life is full of twists and turns, but the truth always finds its way to the surface. See you in the next video.